Eagles insider John McMullen, who has a piece up right now with the very latest, and we'll try to get this all squared away as John joins us here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. All right, John, you were at Target, I saw, right, as this news went down. What is the latest that you can update us on? Because I don't know that there's been a confirmation of suspension or wrongdoing, but there is certainly some admission here from Lane Johnson after previous denial in the same day.
Yeah, there's smoke to the fire, unfortunately, as far as Lane is concerned. It looks like, certainly from what we know, that the A sample has come back dirty, and now we're waiting for the B sample. And very rarely do you see contradictions in these types of situations. So once that happens, in theory, you would have the appeal, and things would move forward from there. So from Jake Glazer's report, who has worked out with Lane in the past and is very, very close to him, he feels what he tested positive for was incorrect, and somehow it came up dirty, and it shouldn't have. But the reality of this situation, Mike, is that the NFL is zero tolerance when it comes to these tests, and you're responsible for what you put into your body. And even if it's a tainted supplement, even if it's labeled wrong, you're responsible for it. And right now, I would say it's not looking very, very good for Lane Johnson.
First off, okay, let me get your opinion on, he's saying it was an amino acid that had peptides that he has kind of indicated that he was told were good, that he had asked multiple times that, on this now, which is kind of interesting, is initially he was asked by reporters and he denied that to like Jeff McClain, Matt Lombardo, among others. He was denying that anything was happening, and then all of a sudden he changed his tune. Is this because he felt that he had a chance? I mean, is that why he decided to? It is a very bizarre situation, John, that happened today.
Yeah, it really is. It's strange in a couple of reasons, because the Eagles seem to be blindsided by it also. And usually the teams and the players are well aware that this is in sort of the machinations have begun, and this process is ongoing. So the fact that he was kind of blindsided and denied it to Jeff McClain, as you mentioned, leads me to believe he was surprised it got out as quickly as it did. Perhaps the explanation for that is he was waiting on the B samples, what he told Jay Glazer. So maybe that's why he went in that direction. But it's not a very smart way to go about things. Your best case, what you should do in that situation is just no comment, because you're going to look very, very poorly. Even if you believe you're innocent, and I think Lane does, you have to know this process is going forward, and things are going to go out at some point, and you're going to have to defend yourself. So to offer the complete denial didn't make a lot of sense, but people get, they don't necessarily, especially in high stress situations, do the right thing at all times, and I can only speculate, but I think that's what happened with Lane.
Now, John, didn't you comment, too, that the B samples rarely are overturned? Like, waiting for that, it's not real optimistic?
No. Very, very rarely our B samples come in differently than the A sample. So that's a shot in the dark. I think the better case is if Lane says there's a hotline in the NFL that players can call, because people need to know, if you go into GNC and something like that, the supplement industry is basically the wild, wild west. It's not regulated. And there are a lot of things that you can go into a GNC or a Rite Aid with the GNC in it and buy a supplement, and it might have something in it that is barred from by the National Football League and other sports leagues easily. And there is a hotline for players to call to clear certain supplements with the league. and they give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If that happened and Lane did clear it, well, at that point he might have a case. But I'm just speculating. I don't know if that happened. It seems like something he might be intimating because he was told that what he took was fine. The question is, who told him that? If Jay Glazer told him that, for instance, it doesn't matter. If his friend from Oklahoma told him that, it doesn't matter. If somebody from the NFL told him that, well, that's a different story.
John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com. There's so many things we can go over here. Now, Johnson, this would be his second suspension, which would be a 10-gamer. What are the domino effects for Lane Johnson, first off, before we get to what happens with the Eagles?
Well, the domino effect for him, obviously, is you're farther along in the process. And God forbid if there's a strike three, then you're talking about a year away from the game. And obviously the Eagles just made him the highest paid right tackle in professional football in the offseason with a 5-year, $56 million deal. So this is a cornerstone of this organization, a cornerstone of this team. And it's one of those things. We always talk about it with the substance abuse policy, but it really holds true for the PED policy as well. I mean, if guys continually fail these tests, it's very, very difficult to count on them. And in his situation, when you have that money, the Eagles could certainly go after some of the signing bonus and things of that nature. So that could create acrimony. Because to be without one of your cornerstone players for 10 games, that's significant from a football perspective. And the fact that the Eagles can't count on this guy is going to become an issue.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, John, we were discussing, Pete brought up earlier that they could void out the bonus section of his contract. Is that the $10 million signing plus the $35 million guarantee?
Well, they can void, and that's the problem. So if you're the Eagles, you have that kind of ammunition at your disposal. So you have to ask yourself a question. Do you still believe in this guy? Or do you want to create that acrimony, as I said, and you can go after bonus money? You have that at your disposal. But clearly this is a very, very talented player, and this is a guy they wanted to build part of what they're doing is around. So that's a difficult discussion to have. If this comes to fruition, if he is suspended for 10 games, the Eagles could make some of those maneuvers. And that, if that happens, you're going to have two sides that obviously the Eagles are not very happy, and Lane Johnson's not going to be very happy. On the other hand, if you do nothing, you basically sign the guy to that monster deal, and you're counting on him to learn from strike number two, and obviously strike number one, it wasn't much of a teaching tool if this comes to fruition as we think it is going to come to.
John McMullen's with us here in the Sports Bash. We're talking about the news today that Lane Johnson possibly out for 10 games for PED use. And, John, how would that affect them on the field then? How do they move forward, shifting guys around if Lane Johnson is out for that time?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with Jason Peters, and if he's on the field at left tackle. And we did get a little good news from Doug Peterson earlier today. Obviously, Jason's not going to be playing in the preseason opener. Nobody expected him to. But Doug did indicate he's going to dress. He's going to be in uniform. He's going to do some of the individual work before the game, and that indicates, obviously, he's very, very close to returning. So if he's able to stay on the field, that obviously softens the blow. If you don't have both of them, to just go status quo and put Matt Tobin at left tackle, Dennis Kelly at right tackle, that doesn't sound like a formula for success. So at that point, I think all of a sudden the dominoes start to fall. You talk about moving Alan Barber, who can play either tackle position outside. Stefan Wisniewski can play left guard all of a sudden. And really, you want to keep your best 5 players you have available on the field. And I think that is a scenario that would take place if both players aren't available. If one isn't available, I think the Eagles are going to err on the side of caution. They don't want a lot of moving parts, and I think Dennis Kelly would get the first opportunity, and also Matt Tobin would start to push him.
John, yeah, right. I mean, the one scenario that I brought up is Barber playing right tackle and Wisniewski and Sayamala battling out for left guard if Peters is, in fact, okay and ready to go. Is that their best case? Because I know they indicated today that Tobin was going to play left tackle or not indicated, they announced that he's going to play left tackle. And I said, I'm okay with that because you want Lane Johnson to get his reps in, and that kind of tells me they're anticipating Peters to be ready to go and ready to play.
Yeah, and that's what I said. He's a lot closer. He's going to dress, so he's going to be back at practice soon, hopefully by sometime next week. And I think in that case, they want to keep the left side together. They consider it a strength and with Alan Barber. But if Peters, and remember, even if he's back for week one, there's still a possibility. This quad problem seems to be chronic at this point. There is a possibility he's going to miss games at 34 years old. He's very banged up. And in that situation where you don't have both of your tackles, then I think they start thinking about getting the best 5 people they have on the field. And to do that, you have to start moving guys around. Barber has to go outside. Wisniewski has to play left guard. And you sort of go from there with
Barber
really
at right tackle.
Backup. Yeah, I don't think they want Barber. I would think Barber would play left tackle in the case.
If Peters got hurt.
Jason Peters, yeah. And then obviously right tackle would be between Kelly and Tobin. I don't think they want to move Barber over to the right side. He's more comfortable on the left side. He's played left tackle with the Packers. He's capable of doing it. You never say never in this league, but I think the Eagles have enough confidence in Tobin and Kelly that they would let them sort of battle it out for the right tackle spot.
What about some of the other injuries, John? You talked about Jason Peters a little bit. Malcolm Jenkins, I know, was on the injury list. Jordan Matthews as well.
Yeah, I mean, no one's all that concerned about veterans like that missing preseason week one. The concern is when you get to week 3, and I think the biggest is Jordan Matthews, because we don't really know how bad his injury is. Doug called it a bone bruise today, but obviously you want him back for that week 3 preseason game, not necessarily to play. I don't think he needs the reps or anything of that nature, but you want to understand he's going to be ready for week 1, because all of a sudden, if he misses the dress rehearsal game, and that's what that 3rd preseason game is, week 1 all of a sudden is in question, no matter what the Eagles say. And that, to me, is the bigger concern. All the other injuries, guys like Malcolm, Michael Kendricks, Doug downplayed his hamstring issue today. I don't think they're long-term issues, so I'm not as concerned with them. Wendell Smallwood has got to get back on the field quickly if he wants to get involved in this running back rotation. So that might be a little bit of concern, but certainly Jason Peters is the biggest one.
And then your take on the tackling. They were in pads again today, but no tackling. And I know Doug was asked if those days are over. Do you think that the tackling is the reason that these injuries have come up, or are injuries injuries?
Well, the players had an off day today. Doug, they were in pads yesterday, but they didn't have any live periods, so it was just thuds. And he said it's probably over for the rest of training camp as far as the live periods go. They will be in pads, though. They will be doing suds and things of that nature. So it's been a very physical camp, as physical as you can get in today's environment with the current CBA. And I think Doug has been happy with it. If you think about it, the biggest injuries was Jordan's, and that was a contact injury. There's no question about it. But if you think about the non-contact camps, Pete, I mean, Jeremy Macklin tore his ACL. Travis Long tore his ACL 2 years in a row. They haven't had that kind of injury. So if you look at it from that perspective, it really hasn't been that bad.
John, I want to get your take on a couple other things. There's been, even if the Lane Johnson news did not come out today, there was a lot we were going to go over today, including the official depth chart, or the unofficial depth chart, I guess you could say. What were some of the highlights and some of the takes you took? I know it's unofficial, but a couple things that stood out to me, and he was asked about today, Jalen Mills ahead of Rowe. He said, yes, he is. What other things and on that depth chart stood out?
Well, Brett Selleck, number one at tight end ahead of Zach Ertz, I think was the biggest thing that stood out. And I think that was just deference to the veteran more than anything else, because the Eagles are going to use a lot of 12 personnel anyway and 2 tight ends. So they're both going to be on the field a lot together. But I do think Zach would certainly get more snaps in the offense over a whole. So I think that had more to do with, as I said, deference to the veteran. But it stands out when you're talking about, most people put Zach as one of the top 5 players on this team. So that was a surprise. And then you sort of had the college mentality. We talked about it with Denver and the quarterbacks a little bit yesterday. And the Eagles did it at defensive end, naming Brandon Graham a co-starter with Connor Barwin at right defensive end and Vinny Curry at left defensive end. So it's pretty clear those 3 guys are going to have sort of a rotational thing and play about the same amount of reps, all being named as co-starters. And the rest of it was in line. You saw some of the young guys. Blake Countess has basically been running with the third team for the entire camp, but all of a sudden the depth chart comes out and he's on the second team. So I think that's bad news for Ed Reynolds, and a guy like Barrett Jones, who people don't know about, but he's mainly been the second team right guard for most of the work, and all of a sudden he's 4th string. So that's not boding too well for him. But other than Ertz and I think Brandon being named a co-starter, there was no giant surprises, because you see their thinking if you're at practice every day.
John McMullen's with us, 97.3 ESPN.com, covers the Eagles. He's got plenty on the Eagles, including the latest on, this Lane Johnson stuff, which I guess is still very fluid and up in the air here, John. But I do want to get your take on how much time do you anticipate seeing from the quarterbacks. He kind of laid it out a little bit the other day, with Bradford, Daniels, and Wentz. But give us your breakdown of what you think we'll see on Thursday night.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on how the game goes. I can't imagine Sam would get more than 1 series unless it's a 3 and out. Maybe they put him out for 2 series. And then you expect Chase Daniel to handle the rest of the first half and Carson Wentz to start the third quarter. And I think you'll even see some McLeod Bethel-Thompson if Carson is having some success and sort of, say he scores a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Maybe you want to get him off the field on a high note and give him some confidence, and then go to your camp arm, your 4th stringer. So I think that's the way it's going to go. And obviously, considering the Eagles' plans and the fact that their mentality is they want to put Carson and shrink wrap for the entire season, I think these are more important games than usual, obviously, for a third-string quarterback, because he needs as many reps as he can get before he goes on the shelf for the season.
John, a couple days until they make this thing happen for the real tonight, Thursday night on 97.3 ESPN. They had the final day of an open day, no practice today. Tomorrow, is tomorrow like a walkthrough? Is this like they're like they would do on a Friday for a Sunday game? Yeah,
they're gonna have a quick walkthrough, which is not open to the media, but they are gonna have a walkthrough tomorrow, and then obviously the game is on Thursday. They're having an off day Friday. And then things pick up hardcore again Saturday. And that's really the end. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I believe, is the end of training camp, and that's it. And then we'll go into really regular season mode from there.
Now, did you get everything you needed at Target, or do you have to go back and make a second trip now?
Well, it's interesting because, they only had Tuesdays off, so we think we got a day off today, and you can kind of catch up on some errands, and it never fails. The biggest story of the day happens when you're in Target.
Did you see Lane Johnson in the supplement aisle? No, I'm just kidding.
Too soon. Too soon.
That's not fair. All right, Sports Bash. Any update real quick on Jordan Matthews? Did Peterson give anything there? Because I know Les Bowen from the Daily News had indicated that it was a bone bruise, and some people thought that it could be worse.
Doug called it a bone bruise. And the thing about the NFL is you're not required to list injuries at this stage of the game. You don't have to do it until the regular season. So it's not just the Eagles. There's a lot of teams who are very close-lipped about injuries this type of year. So you have to kind of see where things are going. And Doug, as you mentioned, he called it a bone bruise today. So the fact that there's no structural damage, that's a very good thing. And that's why, again, with Jason Peters, it was very positive development that Doug said he was going to dress before the game, sort of do some warm-ups, but he's not going to play in the game because that indicates he's closer. But Matthews, they want him on the field for week 3 of the preseason, and if he's not on the field, then you have to start getting concerned.
All right, there's the latest on the Eagles. Not from the NovaCare today. They had the day off. This is from Target today. John
I was at NovaCare for Doug's press conference, but then straight down to Target.
John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com for the latest on Lane Johnson. Check out John's piece at 97.3 ESPN.com, and make sure you follow him on Twitter at JF McMullen. All right, John, take care, pal.
Thanks, John.
Hey, thank you, guys.